On today's episode, portable my ass. What's up, nerds? Welcome back to a much delayed episode. What with work and life and work and work, it's kind of hard to get these things out on a regular basis. Plus, I just haven't been able to find any good things to make videos about. Thrift stores have been a bust, garage sales, estate sales. I mean, all the good junk is either thrown away or just gone for good. Maybe collectors have them. Who knows where they're at? I can't find them. But anyway, I was able to score this bad boy. This here is the Compaq Portable. That's it, the Portable. No clever names, no letters or numbers, just the Portable. Well, they did follow this up with the Portable Plus, then the Portable 2, the Portable 3, the Portable 286, the Portable 386, and finally, and predictably, the Portable 486. But this one is the first, just the Portable. What makes this one special is that it was Compaq Computer Corporation's first product and one of the first IBM PC clones. Sure, while there were other portable computers like the Osborne and the K-Pro.
K-Pro? That wasn't Y1K compliant.
While they came out before this guy, they ran CP/M. This one not only ran DOS, but the good people at Compaq reverse engineered the BIOS so that it ran almost all of IBM PC's library of software. This was a main selling point and really aided the portable sales. Compaq sold 53,000 of these in its first year and generated about $111 million in revenue. Not bad for a startup going against Big Blue. The Compaq Portable was in production from 83 to 85, with the rest of the luggable line going all the way into the early 90s. When innovations in technology allowed for smaller components, better rechargeable batteries, and thinner displays. In other words, the laptop. But if you were a real go-getter and wanted to impress your clients, this was the machine to do it. But just because it was portable doesn't mean it was a laptop. This weighed in at a sturdy 28 pounds, and if you tried to use this on your lap, you'd probably end up with some serious bruising, if not a couple of crushed femurs. I mean, it was portable in the most basic definition of the word. It had a built-in 9-inch green monochrome monitor and a keyboard, but it also had a handle. So that's what made it portable, I guess. As far as performance, it was actually pretty decent. It had an Intel 8088 processor that clocked in at 4.77 megahertz, 128K of onboard memory which could be expanded to 640K, either two 5 1/4 floppy drives, or you could upgrade to one 5 1/4 floppy and a 10 megabyte hard drive, which it looks like this one may have. The base model sold for right around $3,000, and in 2024 dollars, that's about $9,400. The floppy hard drive upgrade was an additional $600, so that brings the grand total to around $11,500 in today's dollars. I mean, back then, you could have bought yourself a brand new base model Mitsubishi Mini pickup truck, or this guy. And the choice is obvious. Well, maybe. I don't know. Which brings us up to this fine specimen. This popped up on Facebook Marketplace a while ago. The seller thought it had worked, but when she went to test it for a potential buyer, it did not want to cooperate. That's when she relisted it with a much lower price with a caveat that this wasn't working. So, the phrase not working is sort of like a dare to me. So I got in touch with her to get it. She told me that it belonged to her father, who taught high school computer science for many years, and used this particular specimen to show the kids what we had to use back in the day.
Imagine lugging this thing for 3 miles, uphill, both ways, barefoot on a shell road to where you are going, and writing a program in BASIC to display the word fart over and over again.
Oh yeah, we had struggles. When she showed it to me and powered it up, the only thing I could hear was the cooling fan, but nothing else seemed to be booting up or working. And that seems to be a common issue with these guys. So I watched some fellow YouTubers who tried to revive their Compaq portables with the same exact issue, only to have them blow up spectacularly. There was 8-Bit Guy, EEVblog, and N commander. There was one common failure point: the tantalum capacitors on the motherboard. They are notorious for failing, pretty much like any capacitor that's over 40 years old. But the Compaq Portable has a decent little feature: a crowbar circuit. For those of you who don't know what that is, a crowbar circuit is a circuit designed to prevent the power supply from sending out voltage if it detects a short somewhere. So it keeps the power from going out to the boards and potentially damaging any of the components. 8-Bit Guy and N Commander use an external power supply without that crowbar circuit, and that's why it zapped and shorted out that capacitor. Now, the upside is that it made troubleshooting a lot easier, but the drawback is that you could potentially take out a chip that you can no longer get, or burn up several traces on the motherboard. The best way is to take that thing apart and hook up the boards one by one to find out where the potential problem lies. So, with that being said, let's get to troubleshooting. Alright, I've watched a couple of tutorials, with the EEVblog and 8-Bit Guy and N Commander, taking this thing apart. They used a couple of flat blade screwdrivers. I just got one, so I'm going to do the next best thing. Works for cell phones and tablets, guitar picks. Just open one up, because apparently there's all these tabs and they love to slide back in on themselves after you open them. Let's see if I can make do with just getting like the main three out the way. Slide it in there. This guy here. There's one. There's two. Okay. And this guy right here. Oh, there it is. All right, we didn't pop any tabs, didn't break any plastics. It's a little bent, a lot of dirty. We have a date code, December 17th, 1984. Ah, okay, that's good to know. Put this down here. So this is, I guess, where you access the card. Yeah, access the cards on the motherboard. You just have to loosen all these screws up to get to everything. I'm going to do the other side just to have it completely off. Let's see. In case I need to unscrew some cards or whatever from this side, because you never know. Up here. This guy in the middle. Well, and this guy on the end. That mostly in. Oh, that actually went off a little easier. So these off. Okay, there's a lip. I thought they were going to drop down into oblivion there. Once again, no brakes, just a lot of dirt. And that's to be expected. I don't think this thing has ever really been opened, but I'm not too sure. If it was a long time ago. We're going to find out if this does have the hard drive in it in a little bit. Spin this guy around. Or actually, maybe put it down like this. Yeah, it'll be a lot easier to work on it, to see from the top down what we've got. Oh, and I've got some controls here for the CRT. That's kind of cool. That's where those adjustments are. And I just see a bundle of IDE wires in here and some other stuff. So while my dogs are going nuts and it's going to screw up the audio, I'm going to watch some more videos, find out the best way to take this thing apart. Alrighty. After rewatching some of those videos, I kind of found out which screws I need to... Actually, you just need to loosen them up. You don't have to take them off, thank goodness. They were actually planning ahead for being able to service these. This was actually opened up at one point. I was missing a little screw over here, a little nut. And this cage, this little plate is bent up. So I loosened all these little screws here. You'll be able to see where they come off. And it should just lift off one. Okay, there is, over here. You can get access to your card, some of your cards here. Let's see if I can get this guy out. If it'll come back, maybe not. Yeah, something's holding this back. Maybe these have to come out. I'm gonna work on that later. Just this is where your drives are. This would be where your CRT is. I'm not gonna open this up just yet, even though I haven't turned this on in a couple of days. CRTs love to hold a charge for a while, and if you're not careful, you can get bit pretty badly. Even the small, the size of the CRT is negligible to the damage it can do to you. So be very careful when you're going into these things. There's a caution here, and 9 times out of 10, I just blow off caution labels and warning labels. But CRTs, oh yeah, they're not fun if you've gotten bit by one. So I don't know if you can see. Let's see what we see on here. I kind of see. Let me bring it in closer. It's a little shaky here because, I'm using my phone and I don't have a nice steady cam. But, yep, you can see the memory down there. Focus. And it looks like there's additional memory installed because these 2 lines, those are socketed memory chips. From what I understand out of the factory, they're blank. So these have been populated. So this does have expanded memory. And just looking right here through the cage is your floppy, and there is a hard drive. So this has the hard drive upgrade. So this is pretty much the Compaq Portable Plus. The Plus came out a little bit later, and it had this option of the hard drive installed and upgraded memory. So even though the badge says just Compaq Portable, for all intents and purposes, this is a plus. So what I'm going to do now is kind of experiment with this. I'm not going to bore you with the details or have you watch me trial and error this thing. I'll come back to it when I figure it out, and we'll go from there. Okay, mystery solved. It was just these 2 screws. You actually have 2 down here. One was missing, and I had already taken this guy out. But the screws that go in here help stabilize your drives. So once you kind of loosen these guys up and remove the screws, they should just slide back somehow. There you go. And there we have your hard drive, which is a Seagate ST238R. I'm going to have to look up the specs on that guy and your floppy drive. And we can also see all the cards in here. This one, the first one on a row, that's your hard drive controller. This second one here, this guy, that looks like it's going to be your networking card. The next one down is your external video, because you have the CGA connector and composite out. And that last one, well, let's see. Oh, okay. This is your floppy drive controller card. I guess that's also your printer interface. It's all in one. So those are the cards. Next on the list is I'm going to take all these cards out and try powering up. If it gets power, we know the problem is somewhere on one of these cards. If it still doesn't power up, it's either the motherboard or the power supply. Is that where it's at? It's up here. Yeah, it's right there, I think. I don't know. We'll take it apart and see. It's somewhere around here. We'll find it. But yeah, process of elimination begins. So get this thing cleaned up and we'll go from there. All right. All the cards have been removed and the power plugs have been unattached from the drives there. So the only thing hooked up to this unit is the motherboard. So I'm going to go right on the side here, pop it on, find a switch. Give it a few seconds. Maybe the CRT needs to warm up. I'm not hearing anything from the CRT either. All I hear is the fan from the power supply, and it's kind of loud too. You can hear it. So that tells me that the problem is going to be either in the power supply or the motherboard. I need to unhook the motherboard from the power supply, but I'm probably going to have to remove like CRT covers and stuff like that to get to it. That's another disassembly, and I will get right back to you. I was able to get the plastic side covers and the front cover off. I was watching a video by Micheal MJD, a great video of a teardown of his Compaq Portable, where he goes step by step and shows you all the tricks and tips that you need to get this taken apart relatively easily. But when he got to removing the power supply, I noticed that it was a little bit different process of removing it on his, which is just a regular portable, as opposed to mine, which makes me think this may be a Compaq Portable Plus. I mean, given the hard drive and the upgraded RAM, I just assumed maybe it was a aftermarket upgrade that the previous owner did. But even though the badge just says Compaq, no indication if it's the Portable Plus or not, it may be the Plus. So I'm too lazy to go back and reshoot all the video where I refer to this as just the Portable. So going forward, it's just going to be the Portable Plus, I'm assuming. Who knows? Could be wrong. Probably am. I don't know. But anyway, getting back to this power supply here, everything looks kind of okay. I mean, I don't see any capacitors doming out here. I don't see any blown tantalum capacitors. These little buggy looking guys right here and hiding out right there. But when I flipped it on its side, I noticed it was like kind of burn mark or darkening of the circuit board right here. And also, there's a little separation between the capacitor and the little base right there. So what I probably will do, and probably what is the best thing to do, is just recap all of these capacitors and down here, all these in a tantalums. That's going to take a little while. I mean, have to order them, get them in, get some time to do that, and then get back on editing this video. So it'll probably be a few weeks before I get back to you. So I will see you in a few. Well, look at this. There's our problem right there. Capacitor number 39, blown to hell. I didn't notice it at first. I was making a list of all the capacitors, the tantalums, and the electrolytics I wanted to replace. And then I had a good look, and look at that. Poof. That's our problem right there, folks. So I'm still going to replace every capacitor on this board. Better safe than sorry. It's, not going to take all that long. And if one goes, they'll all go. That's the way they go. Did I use the word go too much? Probably. Don't care. That's it. The new capacitors are in place. I just replaced these two for now. And I only bought some replacement tantalum capacitors. To recap the entire thing, it would be pretty much double what I paid for the whole computer here. So we're going to take it a step at a time. If some lets out the magic smoke, so be it. I'll replace that. But I just want to see where we go from here. I've got my main power hooked in. I've got my multimeter leads hooked into the Molex power connector down there. I don't know if you can see that for the hard drive, so we can measure any kind of voltage, 5 or 12 volt, make sure that's getting juice. So we're going to power it on. There's a little red LED. It might flash up. You might be able to see this. That's a power indicator to see if the motherboard's getting juice. We're going to see what happens with this. Fingers crossed that we don't blow up anything. There it was. A little, no burning up, but the power indicator on the board just flashed. and went out, and we're not getting any voltage to the Molex connector go to the hard drive. So that's kind of indicative of the crowbar circuit kicking in. I'm going to shut it down, disconnect the motherboard, and see what happens. Maybe I should have done this first. That way we can eliminate the power supply. It's weird. Just hit a little drain off voltage, I guess. Don't know what happened there. Okay, well, same thing. So without the motherboard hooked up, it's still not putting out voltage. Okay, let me refer over here to the schematic. I'm going to test the motherboard, I guess the power connector to the motherboard itself. This is coming straight off the power supply. This should be my ground. 3, 4. And this should be my 12 volt. Nothing. Okay, our power, so yeah, I'm just barely getting anything. So, according to the service manual, that's a power supply issue. So, these capacitors here, pretty much all of these, I mean, it's best just to shotgun them all and see what happens. The power supply connector on this little motherboard is not a standard AT power supply connector like you would see on, the other ones. So you can't just get an adapter and put it in there to test it out. On 8-Bit Guy's video, he piggybacked an ATX power supply into these little Molex connectors here, just using some paperclip jumpers. And it was enough to do the job and short out and blow the bad capacitor. I don't want to do that just yet. I'd rather have a working power supply first before and after. Okay, everything is hooked up. I've got power supply in. It's actually connected to the motherboard just for right now. You know what? Just to be on the safe side, let me disconnect that. Just in case it does fire up and decide to blow something. I have, because everything I've read says you want to have a little bit of a load on this. So I do have the floppy drive hooked up to it. I'm just getting power from the hard drive, so hopefully that's enough load. Windows open to vent out any smoke just in case. So here you go. Hang tight. Watch this little LED to light up. Oh no, it won't because we don't have it hooked up. Doy. Okay, hang tight. Oop. Yeah, that's not good. There's a high-pitched whine and it's cycled down, and now we have nothing. Well, that's definitely a power supply issue. So there's something else other than the capacitors keeping this from firing up. So I will have to buy that. They make an adapter. I've seen it on eBay. It's actually, I put it in my little watch list to go from an ATX power supply to a dedicated output for this. What you do is use, the thought behind is you use a little micro ITX. Everything fits snug back in here and replaces it. The only problem with that is that little replacement does not have a crowbar circuit. So it will fry something if there's a capacitor gone. So that's next on the list. So it's not a really big loss. I mean, I've got some soldering practice in. There's only like about $8 or $9 worth of capacitors that I replaced on here. So not a big loss. That's the next step. So yeah, we're just gonna put an order into eBay, see how long that takes. Hopefully it's not coming from China or anywhere like that. Hopefully it's a US seller and I can get it here and it will work, maybe. So hang tight. Got this power supply board out. And this is the on-off switch power input, and I'm assuming it's some kind of line filter. But this is a pretty chunky boy, and it looks like it's soldered together here. And that kind of sits right in this little proprietary space right there. See how it's nice and formed to it? Well, I got the power supply for the micro ATX, and it's big. So big, in fact, that it's not going in all the way, and I can't turn it like this. Power inputs here, outputs on the bottom. So what I may have to do is decase it. And these aren't held together with screws. I've tried doing the feel underneath the label. These are pressed on and probably just heat welded on. So what I'm going to have to do is put it in a little bench vise, give it a little squeeze, and it should pop off enough. And that'll leave us with the bare circuit board. And I'll see about hacking into this guy. A little Dremel cutting tool, cut one of the lids off, maybe decase this and solder directly into here, because the 120 is just going to come in here, get filtered, and go straight into this guy here. So I may be able to condense both of these enough to where put them in here and you still have plenty of room for the mini ITX converter board that goes from Pico ITX to this guy right here. And also, these are the power leads going to the drives. Two go to the drives. I'm not sure where the third one goes, but I think they're all the same. So let's get to hacking. There's some research on this Potter 5004-1080. It turns out, yes, it is just a power filter. I did that after I cut into it, like you're supposed to do. Do your research after you make drastic alterations to it. So this panel here, it was just kind of soldered on all four sides, which is very good construction from the Potter company. So I got that out. Come on. And then there was a layer of plastic protecting the circuitry from the metal case. And let me get my portable spotlight here, otherwise known as the flashlight. And you can see, ooh, look at that. Yeah, that's a lot of real estate crammed in there. There's no downsizing or downscaling this. So what we're going to do is get a little hot glue, put this guy back in like that, and a little bit more hot glue along the edge just to get this guy back in. And it sits, fortunately, I cut the right side for once, and it sits down. This is the bottom of the computer, so it's still protected from prying hands if I ever have to go in there. And we're just going to pretend we didn't do anything with this at all. Here is the decased 12-volt power supply that's going to power the Pico ATX board. Everything is taken out. I even removed the attached 120 in, and I shortened the DC out. So, for once, this thing came with about 4 feet of cable, and that would have just been bunched up and looked like, garbage. So I did about, the length of this. I figured that would be plenty enough, and that way I can zip tie this together. And I think the dimensions on the Pico ITX board are exactly the same measurements as this barrel here. So if not, we can certainly just hot wire it in. And there are the leads. I just had some lamp wire for right now. I'm waiting on everything to come in, the Pico ITX and the adapter board, because I think it has to go from this into the adapter board and then into the Pico ATX or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But here it is. And I've actually boogered on some hot glue right where the 120 comes in at the solder points, and right here at the 12-volt out, just to prevent some kind of shocking. If it does make contact with this, but then all of these will probably hit too. They have these nice little sponge spacers that were from the case, but what I'd like to do is put some standoffs on here and kind of find out where they correspond to these and just maybe attach them, but I don't know, it might stick out too far, a little nut or screw or wherever how it mounts might prevent it, but we'll see when that happens. Definitely would like to put a little thin sheet of like plastic insulation over this. Definitely, we'll find out. But it gets, come on, it gets right up there now. I mean, plenty of room, and it's cooler, you know, because no case. All right, let's see what happens when the adapter board and the Pico ITX comes in. It's a few days later, and everything eventually came in. This is the adapter board here, going from the ATX to the pinout power here for the motherboard and the power to the drives and the monitor right here. It also came with this little board here. This is where the 120 comes in from the filter. Let me come up a little bit higher. The one filtered 120 comes in here and gets distributed to the case fan here, and this goes to the 12-volt power supply up here, which powers this guy here, this little micro Pico ATX 20 pin. Fun fact, when Amazon says free 2-day shipping, they just mean from whenever it decides to leave their facility, which in this case was 3 days after I ordered it. So it took about a week to get in, despite the fact that said it would be arriving in 2 days. So yay, Amazon. So, oops, sorry about that. Let's zoom back out. Now we're going to hook everything together right here. I have the window opened in case anything decides to let out any magic smoke. And what we're going to do is just power on the monitor and the 2 drives at first. Basically everything that runs off of these smaller connectors, just to put a load on it, check out the power, make sure the CRT comes on, and we'll see what happens. And then we'll, if nothing blows up or anything, I keep hitting this tripod, sorry guys. If nothing blows up, then we'll hook up the motherboard first, and we'll just progress down a line of inserting cards until everything boots up or something decides to pop on us. So fingers crossed, let's see what happens. Got everything hooked up. Hard drive, floppy, monitor, and got this kind of boogered together a little bit. I need to find a dedicated, well, there is a dedicated grounding lug right here, but it's really short, and this little distribution board is taking up most of it. So might have to put another one in there somewhere. But anyway, fingers crossed. Let's fire it up. Well, it would help if I plugged it in first. Duh. Okay, that's plugged in. Okay, well, I hear the cooling fan. That hasn't changed. I don't hear anything else. So I will take some measurements and see if at least it's getting power. Maybe it's waiting for a boot signal from the motherboard. Who knows? Hang tight. I'm in the connector for the hard drive now. Let's see. Okay, 5 volts there. That looks good. And this should be 12. 11.91. That's good enough. Okay, so we know it's getting voltage. So hopefully it's waiting for a signal from the motherboard, maybe. Let's go to the next step. Hooking the power up to the motherboard. The motherboard is hooked up, and I hooked up the keyboard to it. I don't think we get a command prompt. Actually, the screen's probably not going to come on because it's not hooked into the video card. Right now, I just want to make sure the motherboard comes up without blowing up. That's always my goal. So we're going to keep an eye on this little red light here. If it comes on and stays on, we know the motherboard is getting power and should be good. If it comes on and fades, that's a little issue. If it doesn't come on at all, well, we'll just burn that bridge when we get to it. So let's get the window opened up for ventilation. Let's fire this thing up. Okay, it flashed for a second and went out. I don't know. Let's fire it up again, see what happens. I don't smell anything like a capacitor burnt or anything. I just went again. Okay, nothing at all again. All right, so the motherboard is not coming on at all, which means the motherboard is either not getting power or it's getting power and it's might have a burnt trace somewhere on it, or a shorted capacitor. It may not be blown up, but yeah, that would cause that. So I think I need to take this motherboard out and test it out outside of this cage, because it's really hard to get to any test points on that thing in here. And that might be a pain in the butt. We're going to watch some more videos on disassembly and see what we can get from this guy. Well, here we are. I got the motherboard out. It actually kind of slides out from underneath. It's put together kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You just have to find the right pieces to take out first, and then it's actually not that hard. Also got the drives out. Floppy, hard drive. There you go. Say hi, everybody. Everything looks good so far. I mean, there is no burnt tantalum capacitors, and even on the back, it's gorgeous. There are no corroded or burnt traces. So I'm thinking, okay, where do we go from here? The answer is in this piece of shit. Here we go. The little micro ATX I waited on Amazon for several days. I'll put a link below so you can avoid this at all costs. What happens is it is not putting out any negative voltage. This thing requires, I think it's a -5 and a -12, both of which are non-functioning on here. Hook my meter up. Actually, the only voltages it's putting out is a +12 and a +5. The 3 volt is not working. The -5 and -12 aren't working. So this is going back to Amazon today, and I will actually splurge and probably get the one that's twice the amount. This was the cheapest, so get what you pay for. That's on me. So we're going to send this back and wait another few days, maybe a week, for the new one to come in. What I might actually do, I have a couple of older ATX power supplies that are 20 pin, I think, that I pulled out of some old Dells. So I might be able to get by if the adapter board lets me pop it in. We'll see if we can get just a regular off-the-shelf power supply to get this sucker going, just to see what happens. So I don't have to wait another week from Amazon for this to come in. So, yay. Here is where we stand with the project. I was able to find an older ATX power supply with the 20-pin connector. Got it running into this little adapter board that goes out to the motherboard. You see, we have a light and most of the cards in. These bottom three, this is I think the floppy controller or the hard drive. I think this is the hard drive controller. One of them. It's one of the drive controllers. This is your printer, I guess, your parallel port, whatever this guy is. A modem. That worked fine. I still had the little red light back there. When I hooked in the video card, it went out. So what I ended up doing is replacing every single one of these 10 microfarad, 16 volt tantalum capacitors. There's about 4 or 5 on here. Plugged it in, and now we have signal. And I don't know if it's better or worse, but we now have an image on the monitor. These exclamation marks, that kind of points to an error. So I don't know what that's about. And going back here, the only card we have left to put in is the other drive controller. Probably this might be the floppy and printer card controller. When I plugged it in, one of the capacitors, actually, this guy right here, that one blew up on me. So I knew that one was bad. Unfortunately, there are about 4 or 5 of those 16 volt, 10 microfarad capacitors on here, and I only had 2 left. So I replaced the one that was burnt and the one by the the little slot here. These are the ones that usually go bad according to the video, so I replaced that one. Plugged it in, and I got a dead board. Well, the motherboard shut down. So there is probably, this guy here, 1, maybe 2 left on here I need to replace. Maybe this guy over here. Those are the only 2 left. Unfortunately, I am out because I ran through my pack of a dozen or 10 or how many came from Amazon, doing the motherboard, doing the video card, and the power supply. Maybe I can harvest them off the power supply if I left enough of the legs coming through. Unfortunately, I snipped those pretty close in when I go to solder them, so it may or may not work. I'll give that a shot and see. And in the meantime, if I have to order some from Amazon, I'll research. Oh, well, this thing just up and died on me, so maybe not. Here's the state of the Compaq. We are still stuck with this screen, and it stays powered on. All the boards are powering on, but now, and you'll hear it in a few seconds, some diagnostic beeps are going to come up, and I'll explain what those are when they happen. And that's kind of a step in the right direction because it never did that before. I replaced all the tantalum capacitors, whether they needed it or not, on the motherboard, video card, and the floppy drive controller. Oh, hear that? One long beep followed by 2 short beeps. According to the internet, that is indicative of a video card malfunction. Now, we kind of need that. It's quite important because not only is it the only way we can resolve these issues, but yeah, we're at a standstill until that happens. And you just can't drop in another one. Unfortunately, this is proprietary because of this connector here that goes to the onboard CRT. Sure, they have some outputs back there, composite and I think EGA maybe, but it'll still show the same garbage, I'm assuming, especially if it's throwing up errors. And that beep you just heard indicates that the motherboard finished going through the boot up BIOS process. So that's progress. The motherboard theoretically works 100%. Now, I went through and replaced all of the tantalum capacitors. I bought a couple of packs from Amazon of that one value. I think it's 10 microfarad, 16 volts. And I just shotgunned all of them on here, on the main board back there, the video board, and this board. Funny fact, on this floppy drive printer board, there are 2 test points, back way in there, that had little jumpers soldered into them. So not jumpers, but little posts, so they could easily attach an oscilloscope probe, which means this thing has been giving somebody issues in the past. And I'm just noticing right here, I don't know if you can see it, a little bodge wire going from one chip to another. So this thing had issues in the past. Strike one. But without a known working video card, this project, I hate to say, is at a standstill. So, like all the other videos I watched, there's not going to be a part 2 unless I get a known working video card in here. But it's not frustrated. I'm not all mad because, I bought it totally dead. At least I got it to a point to where it boots up, it goes through the process of booting, and it displays something on the screen, which is kind of cool looking, actually. But, like anything with old vintage electronics, chips fail, anything can happen. So it's not a total win, but it was a decent learning experience. And if there's anything you take away from this video, that's what it is. You can't win them all, but you make the best of what you have in your, not a failure. This thing didn't blow up on me. I didn't make it any worse than it already was. So I'll take that win. So until I run across another one of these, I really don't feel like shelling out an exorbitant amount of money for a possibly working original video card on this. It's going to be boxed up and stay in storage, or gets it looking good and I have space to display it, be a museum piece. It is a piece of computer history, one of the first luggables and one of the first IBM PC clones. So I'm not going to get all flustered and get angry and set this thing on fire like I did that, piece of garbage, retro radio. This is a real deal. It's kind of worth keeping it, almost as is. I know the power supply is gone, but it is what it is. So with that, I hope you learned a little something. Let this be a cautionary tale for you guys when you undertake projects that are known not working. You could go nowhere, but at least you get some practice soldering, troubleshooting, things like that. It's a learning process, folks. That's, you kind of need that in this hobby. So with that being said, you guys take it easy, and hopefully the next video, we might have a better success story. Spoiler alert, probably not, but, fingers crossed. All right, take it easy.